Hey gang, how's it going? This is Nate on the Stone, and welcome to this next episode of The Rolling Stone, where if you've been around the channel before, you know that this is where I give my initial thoughts and impressions about things that are currently in the news. Very few clips, very few cuts. This is supposed to be kind of a stream of conscious sort of video, and my apologies right off the top about not uploading a video last Friday. If you saw my regular video that I posted on Tuesday here on the channel, you know that I was attending the Demand Free Speech rally in sunny, beautiful San Francisco, California. So if you haven't watched that video yet, go do so now. I think that it's one of my best videos, and it's about a really important topic, free speech, that is getting more and more restricted, it seems like, as the weeks go by. But enough of the preliminaries, on with the video for today, this Rolling Stone video. And the first story that I wanted to talk about was actually about another YouTuber called Pro Jared, aka Jared Nebenbauer is his real name. He is a YouTube gamer, so I'm not subscribed to his channel. I don't really watch his videos because I don't watch a lot of gamer videos because I myself am not a gamer. But anyway, he's really big here on YouTube across numerous channels. He has, I think I read, about 1.3 million subscribers, so he's one of the big dogs. But anyway, the story broke out late Wednesday that he and his wife, Heidi O'Farrell, were getting a divorce. He released a statement on Twitter saying that he and his wife Heidi had decided to get a divorce so that both of them could find happiness. Okay, sad, but you know, divorce is unfortunately a big part of our reality, especially today. So no big deal, right? Well, the plot thickened, because soon after he dropped that announcement on Twitter, his wife, Heidi O'Farrell, actually said, no, this is not the whole story. He has been consistently cheating on me with another YouTube gamer, Holly Conrad. What's more than that is that for the past several months, my husband, Jared, has actually been gaslighting me. He's the one who has been making me think that the state of our marriage is entirely our fault. Everything that's wrong with our marriage is our fault. And even when, and she went on Twitter, and she went on and said that even when I presented him with concrete proof, like, no, I know that you're cheating, he denied it, he got defensive, he tried to weasel his way out of it, and it was only until like his back was literally up against the corner and he had tried to absorb himself into the corner did he finally admit that, yes, I've been having an affair with this other woman. According to his soon-to-be ex-wife Heidi, he was also telling her, Heidi, that he hardly knew this other girl that he was having the affair with, this Holly Conrad, you know, had minimal contact with her, while at the same time he was telling Holly that he was going to be breaking up with Heidi. Okay? So at the same time that he was telling his wife Heidi that he hardly knew his girlfriend Holly, he was telling his girlfriend Holly that he was going to be breaking up with his wife Heidi. If you're confused, that's okay. I had to read the story a couple of times too and actually make a little chart like, okay, Heidi is this person, Holly is this person, she said this, then he said this, in order to make sure that I had the story and the he said, she said story straight. This is not a piece of gossip, just in case anyone was wondering. This illustrates a truth, actually, that the left has, okay? I am actually going to say it. The left is right, but they're not completely right. They're right about the existence of what they call toxic masculinity, okay? I don't know Jared, I don't know Heidi, I don't know Holly, I haven't watched any of their work. So if this is true, if what Heidi said here is true, if her soon-to-be former husband, Jared, Pro Jared here on YouTube, Jared Nebenbauer to, okay, the rest of the outside world, if he treated her like she describes, or like she described on Twitter, this is a clear example of toxic masculinity, okay? I have absolutely no problem with admitting that toxic masculinity exists, okay? The left is completely right when they say that toxic masculinity exists. However, the caveat is that toxic masculinity is not what the left says that it is. They try to make the argument, they try to weave the narrative to say that toxic masculinity is just regular old-fashioned, masculinity. The desire to protect women, the desire to respect women, to show that respect in little actions like paying for a date, opening doors for women, okay? Apparently those are all examples of toxic masculinity, according to the left. No, that's just old-fashioned, strong, virile masculinity, okay? That's what real masculinity is about. It is about responsibility. It is about channeling your strength, whether that's physical strength, mental strength, spiritual strength, into actually doing what is right and good. And part of what's right and good is, of course, respecting women, not just as equal persons, but because they are women. It means, sacrificing for your family, for your friends. It means being responsible for your actions. It means, I think it should be obvious, not cheating on your wife. And then, if you are cheating and, and especially if your wife then says, hey, I've got proof that you're cheating, you don't, try to weasel and worm your way out of it. You fess up and you get down on your knees and you beg for forgiveness, okay? You apologize, you beg for forgiveness, you take responsibility for what you've done. That is actual masculinity, okay? Toxic masculinity is the corruption of real masculinity. It's using your strengths for your own goals. It's putting yourself, your own pleasures above anything and everything else. And I actually made a whole video about this, a regular On the Stone video about this back in January, I think, when the whole Gillette toxic masculinity ad came out. So if you want to hear me go further into that, go watch that video here on the channel. But this story, I think, again, just to cap off, is a great example of, yes, toxic masculinity exists, but again, it's corrupted masculinity. It's not actual real masculinity. So that's that story. The big story for this episode takes place in Pennsylvania. If you didn't know about State Representative Brian Sims, you are very, very lucky. I first heard about him actually last year when, on the occasion of Vice President Mike Pence coming to visit Philadelphia, Brian Sims gave a very unique welcome to the vice president. I am not going to demonstrate that welcome, and I'm not going to repeat what he said on Twitter. Basically, he gave Mike Pence the bird because, of course, Mike Pence is a, traditional Bible-believing Christian, which means that he's a hater and a bigot in the eyes of ideologues like Brian Sims. Well, I read that story last year. That was back in June or July last year. Hadn't heard much about him. And then he blew up in the news again. Why? Because he decided to harass people who were doing nothing except prayerfully protesting outside of a Planned Parenthood clinic, okay, in Pennsylvania. That's the only thing that they were doing, okay? On April 18th, he recorded himself, okay? He made a video of himself, and then he released it on Twitter and on his social media platforms about him walking up to a group of 5 women, which included 3 teenage girls, okay? Keep that thought in mind. 3 teenage girls. And let's see here. He said, quote, "A bunch of white people standing out in front of Planned Parenthood shaming people. There is nothing Christian about what you're doing." Okay? And then when he went up to them, He actually offered his followers on social media $100 if they could identify any of the women in that group, any of the 5 women, including the 3 teenage girls. So basically what he was egging his followers to do was to dox these women, including the 3 teenage girls, okay? So if these teenage girls, I don't know their ages, but if they were below 18, that means that they are still legally considered children. So he was actually telling his followers to dox children. Okay, and I think it was Allie Beth Stuckey on Twitter who said, when you dox people, the goal is always to cause them pain and suffering. Okay, that's always the ultimate goal of when you dox someone or when you try to dox someone. But he didn't stop there. He returned to that same Planned Parenthood clinic a few weeks later, and then he met another woman who was praying a rosary outside of the Planned Parenthood clinic, okay? And the first group of women said, we're not doing anything, we're praying for the babies, right? This woman praying a rosary outside of Planned Parenthood, Catholic girl, she's obviously praying for the babies, probably for the moms too, right? Because we emphasize, pro-lifers emphasize both, the unborn babies and the mothers. State Rep Brian Sims described this next woman as an old white lady, okay? And then he said to her, what you're doing is disgusting. And he called it a racist act of judgment, okay? And then on Twitter, he actually doubled down and he said, quote, push back against Planned Parenthood protesters, please, emphasis his. They prey on young women. They use white privilege and shame. They're racist, classist, bigots who need and deserve, emphasis his, our righteous opposition. Push back, please, unquote. Now, the silver lining to all of this is that the parents of those 3 teenage girls, because of all this, actually have raised $100,000, which they donated to a pro-life organization. And today, going on right now, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, there is a big pro-life rally being held outside of that very same Planned Parenthood clinic. Abby Johnson is going to be there. Chad Felix Green, I think, is there. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire is there. So good stuff, good people happening there. But I want to take a moment and I really want to emphasize what happened here. Okay, we have a state representative. Okay, a man who was elected by the people, who not only decided to publicly harass and try and shame these women, okay, who were doing nothing but exercising their constitutional right of religious freedom and association, okay, and free speech. That is all that they were doing. They weren't rioting, they weren't shouting and screaming, they were praying, okay? They were just praying outside of an abortion clinic. But for that, Brian Sims not only harassed them, he asked for them to be doxxed. He encouraged his followers to find out who these women were so that they could be harassed, so that they could basically be attacked in private, in their private lives. Like he said, they deserve our righteous opposition. This is phenomenal because we are entering the next stage of what you might call the game, okay? Where elected officials, public servants, if you oppose their ideology, they are declaring war against you, okay? They are saying you have no place in the public square. You have no place in society. You have no place in the community. Okay? You are basically a leper if you don't agree with them lock, step on every single issue. You are the enemy. You shall be opposed righteously. That's where we're going. And the whole fact that this was actually a state rep and that, he has suffered no backlash from the people in his own party. Plenty of people in the opposition party, plenty of people on the right have actually called him out on it, and good for them. And he issued sort of an apology that was not an apology. He said, I need to do better with women, etc., etc. No, pal. You need to resign, as in a week ago, because he has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he can't be trusted within 1,000 miles of any level of power whatsoever. Because when you have public servants who act like this, okay, they're not being public servants anymore, they're being public masters. And it actually reminded me of a quote from Thomas Jefferson. He said, a man in a public office should be considered and treated as public property, because you are. You say that you are a servant of the people, all the people. Hasn't that been, the talk of the left for ages and ages? That's why we can't have any sort of, religious emphasis or religious vibe in anything in government, because, you're going to erase atheists and agnostics. I mean, isn't that why they're saying that, no, these people can't be, if you believe this, you obviously can't be a part of the government, you can't do anything like this because you're a hater and you're a bigot. But apparently, again, it's only for believing in the wrong things, because if you are, an ideologue for the left-wing ideology, it's perfectly all right. And I'm going to make a whole regular On the Stone video partially about this and tying a few other stories into it, because there's a bigger picture here that's going on. So watch for that in the coming weeks. But yeah, that is huge news that public servants are now openly becoming public masters and harassing people publicly to adulation on their side, harassing people for simply exercising their constitutional and natural rights. So that's that story. The last story that we're going to be covering in this episode takes place on both sides of the country. A school district in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Again, I don't know what it is about Pennsylvania these weeks, but something in the water is making people crazy. But anyway, a school district in Pennsylvania has come down on a principal, because what the principal was doing, every morning he would lead the school in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then, after the Pledge of Allegiance, he led the students in saying, God bless America. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. The district got after him, and the superintendent of the district wrote him a letter saying you can't do that anymore, okay? Because, of course, guess what? That violates separation of church and state, and they had complaints from the Freedom from Religion Association, or Freedom from Religion group, the same busybodies who say any mention of God is somehow horrible, and it just brings us one stone's thrown away from a theocracy, right? Watching a Charlie Brown Christmas now is going, it's Charlie Brown Christmas today, theocracy tomorrow, is in these people's minds. Now, they did say that if kids wanted to say God bless America on their own, that was perfectly okay, but the principal couldn't. You've got that in Pennsylvania. Switch your attention now to the West Coast, to Washington State, where another school district, another superintendent of a school district, has written letters to her principals saying that they must greet Muslim students with the traditional greetings of their holy month of Ramadan, okay? According to the Muslim calendar, right now we are in Ramadan. It is one of their holiest seasons. It's a month of fasting, okay? It's very, very important and holy for Muslims, kind of like how the Easter season is for Christians. So one of the traditional greetings for Ramadan is Ramadan Mubarak, which means happy Ramadan. And that is how this superintendent in Washington State told all of her principals they have to greet Muslim students. They have to greet Muslim students with, Ramadan Mubarak, or one of the other traditional greetings for Ramadan. And they also have to take care not to schedule any tests or anything, during Ramadan for their Muslim students, or actually during Muslim holidays in general. Look, I think that schools should work with students. Okay, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever. And if there's a big test that coincides with a holy day and you have religious obligations, yeah, you should be able to go to the teacher in advance and say, look, I'm of this particular faith. This day is a holy day. I am obligated to do this, this, and this. So I'm not going to be able to take the test. Can I please work with you to reschedule to take the test? And I think that teachers and principals should work with students on that, because of course religious liberty is something that we should work with and accommodate as far as possible. And this is no big deal. But I want to emphasize this contrast. In Pennsylvania, a principal basically got slapped on the wrist for leading his students in saying, "God bless America," after reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. That's bad. That violates the separation of church and state. Over in Washington state, however, you can greet Muslim students. You can single them out, and you can greet them with traditional greetings of their holy month. Now, if a teacher, greeted, Christian students with during Easter time with "Alleluia, he has risen," that teacher would be before some sort of committee or tribunal faster than a jackrabbit on a date. Okay? There would be no mercy shown. That would be horrible. So what this shows is that it's not just the double standard anymore, okay? We're used to a double standard existing. We all know that it exists. But again, it is advancing. It is going to the next stage, because now what we're saying, it's like Orwell said in Animal Farm, right? All animals are equal, but some animals are just more equal than others. What we're saying is that some people who fall within, the complex pyramid of the progressive postmodern ideology, they're more equal than all the people who are not part of that equation. If you belong to one of these groups over here, you can have your holy days acknowledged. You can actually bring that out into the open, in school, in public, whatever. However, if you do not belong to one of those groups, if you are one of the outsiders, if you are one of the outcasts almost, then you cannot. You can keep your religion inside your head and in the four walls of the place you worship, once a week. And then after that, you keep it there, or if you know what's good for you, because otherwise you're going to bring down a whole bunch of trouble on you and your family. So it's getting more and more obvious, and people who are promoting this are getting more and more bold, which just shows me that we are getting into the next stage of the game. This is where everything has kind of been progressing towards, where the trajectory has been pointing, because no one has actually been able to turn that trajectory, and now it is upon us. But anyway, I have been talking for long enough, so have a great day, enjoy it, keep fighting, live a free or die, and I will see you next time on Tuesday for our regular episode, gang. Ciao.